By the time your kids have grandchildren, the price of oil will be through the roof, if there's any left. So as George Bush's father said, we're in deep doo-doo, and we need to get cracking quickly and start dealing with reality. That's why I drove from Maine to Oregon, sea to sea, as a consciousness-raising thing for myself at least, and maybe for you.
I'm sick of these SOBs. They're driving these SUVs and trying to run over me when I'm in my beat-up car. I'm sick of these SOBs. They're driving these SUVs and trying to run over me when I'm in my beat-up car. Wait a minute.
What we were doing, we wouldn't be here. We're going to do a trial run at Mount Washington to check out, see whether this little car will climb it. And basically it's a granite dynamometer, and the whole point is to stress it and see if it'll stand it, because we've got to go 3,650 miles later on. It's not an easy car to get into. It's kind of small. When I was born in 1928, the world population was 2 billion. It's now 6 billion. World population has tripled in just my lifetime. That amounts to 114,000 people added every day. In 1974, right over here in the fog, it wasn't foggy that day, we had an electric motorcycle picture taken of a Corbin electric motorcycle, the first electric vehicle I think that ever climbed this mountain. And I still own it. It's in the museum.
Have a little 4-cylinder engine?
Yeah, it's about twice the size of a laptop.
Yeah.
It's aluminum, 4-cylinder, 40 horsepower.
Okay.
And the car only weighs 800 pounds.
All right.
So 40 horsepower pushing 800 pounds goes like a rabbit.
I guess. Now, how do you get it registered in this country?
Motorcycle.
Oh, it's registered as a motorcycle?
Yeah. Has to be over 25 years old to bring them in.
Okay.
Because EPA doesn't like the engine.
All right.
But if you spread out a gallon of gas over 70 miles, I don't think that's very much pollution.
So you get 70 miles to
70 miles a gallon. They asked Detroit to build a 80 mile per gallon car. Yeah. And Detroit spent $4 billion and couldn't do it. I said, geez, I can't do it. And I bought this for $2,650 and it does it. Sorry, it's so dirty, but the cat's been jumping up on it. One of the cats thinks he's a figurehead. It's a little bit difficult to work on.
So I guess the goal is to get this car out wash.
Does it drop out or anything? Or?
Yeah, if you were to remove it, it goes out and back. They were brought into the country as an advertising scheme to be driven around New York City, and somehow or other I ended up with 16 of these.
Okay.
And my project is to convert this one over to a hybrid. So it'll be running diesel-electric hybrid. It produces a lot of
they were bicycles.
visitors down the shop when I'm down there. There'll be a car pretty much in constant attendance.
Yeah.
And that's off Route 23 in Maine.
Now, I see duct tape is an important part of it.
Yeah, I think that's English duct tape too. This car is leaving August 30th for Oregon, or driving C2C.
Okay.
They have a website, c2c2003.org.
All right.
And the point of it is that someday we're going to run out of gas. And when we do, it would have been nice if we had been less consumptive along the way.
Too many people, too many people. Everybody's doing whatever they please. We got too many people and not enough trees.
Ultimately, the reason gasoline prices are going out of sight is that fossil fuels are getting shorter and shorter supply. If you discount everything else, ultimately we're going to run out of gas. And there's I think, a slim chance that it will happen so quickly that the kids who are presently in kindergarten may never have driver's licenses. I hope that doesn't happen that fast. I hope it stretches out for a long time. And one way to stretch it out is not to run 40 gallons worth of gasoline into an SUV and go 10 miles down the road and have to stop again. This car will go for a whole day, run just as hard as you can run it.
Back in primitive bygone ages, stars and planets and sun shone down on ferns and grasses 40 feet high and herds of horrible thundering lizards. Then came a change in the long hot season. One of the stars fell out of the sky, and so what goes around comes back around, and all of it ended up underneath the ground. How strange it is, and I don't even think about it. How strange it is, speeding across the land.
This is our lucky day. Everything we've touched today turns to not to gold. There was another king, King Anus, and everything that he touched turned to something else. I forget what it was.
But a billion years is only a dream when you're stuck in traffic and the lights turn green. Living your life in a death machine, living in the age of gasoline.
We were going to have an experimental license plate for developmental vehicles, but they insisted that we have a muffler on an electric car and seat belts on motorcycles, and so we're going to have to debate this a little bit more.
Too many people, too many people. Everybody's doing whatever they please. We got too many people and not enough trees.
The starting point of your trip.
Yes, it is. This is the Atlantic Ocean, or an arm of it, and we hope to see the Pacific in about a week or so.
Any projections on problems or delays or anything?
We've had all of them just in one day today, so the future should be fine. We're going to stop and see some buffalo along the way, maybe.
Good luck.
Thank you.
To drive in saner climes with courtesy and care. A right of way meant something where idiots were rare. But driving here is something for which no one can prepare. It's part skill, part luck, part suicide, and more than one part prayer. Who taught these idiots to drive?
Who taught these idiots to drive?
Who told them the speed limit was really 95? The last time someone yielded here, it was 1945. Who taught these idiots to drive?
The hairpin turn is 4,000 feet ahead. I was here 72 years ago. This is the first recollection I have of traveling in a motor car. My grandfather had cancer, and we've been living in New York State. We're heading for Boston. And my mother took me along in a rumble seat Ford. I don't know if it was a Model T or Model A. And I remember going by this place, and specifically, I pictured it being on the other side of the ridge. As time has gone by, you change everything. But it's the same place, 73 years later.
Ask Charlie how much he wants for air.
35?
You got it.
This car weighs 800 pounds, and it'll carry 800 pounds of people. The SUV, the Tin Pig, weighs 4 tons and carries an 85-pound soccer mom. Gallons. That takes us from Massachusetts to almost Pennsylvania. $13.18. The next oil should be finished in 100,000,000 AD, so don't go hanging around the gas station waiting for the next batch. Got 60, or just a tad under 60. So it's old, it's got almost 81,000 miles on it. And who knows who drove it, where, and how, and whether they put the oil in. So if somebody built a car like this now and put good stuff in it, I think 100, 125 miles per gallon would not be out of reach.
The Milton House itself is recognized by the Portland Cement Association as the first concrete home in America. Joseph Goodrich built it with his own recipe for concrete. It's a lime mortar. It's an early form of concrete. Sand, gravel, stones, slate lime, water.
We don't have the family farm anymore. We have agribusiness, and that means giant diesel tractors. It means growing food in the Midwest, 1,700 miles from where you have your dining room table. It means trucking it here in 3.6 million trucks, burning a lot of diesel fuel. It goes 60 miles on a gallon of gas. We know that, and the claim is that if it was in good shape, if it didn't have 81,000 miles on it, it would do better than it's doing. And they say 70 miles per gallon is common, and some people are capable of getting 100 miles per gallon.
Last Saturday, a group of 3 vehicles left the state of Maine, aimed at ending up in Oregon. It's a modern trip to commemorate the first transcontinental trip by car 100 years ago.
They made it in fairly decent time. Lots of waits at railroad depots for repair parts. Their car was a 4.5 horsepower curved dash Oldsmobile.
MacArthur says now, after a century has passed, a similar trip across the country is very different. Now as they make the trip 100 years later, they're less worried about actually getting to the other end of the nation and more worried about how much gas they're using to do it. MacArthur says as he watches the gas prices climb, the United States needs to become less dependent on gasoline and oil, so the group is making the trip in very gas-friendly cars. MacArthur's driving a 3-wheeled British car that gets 60 miles to a gallon of gas. Jim Bentley is also on the trip, and he is doing even better than MacArthur.
But I did manage to sneak one day so far that was over 90 miles per gallon. So that was a real good one. This morning, after leaving just before Waterloo there, so far today I'm doing just a tad over 80 miles per gallon with this.
Bentley says they don't know when they'll get to Oregon, but he does add the only thing that matters now is just that they get there. In Hanlantown, Justin Foss, KIMT News Channel 3.
Bells are jingling, ancient magic, fires are signaling up ahead. We are traveling on the backs of yaks and buffaloes back to the valley. We who made it through the terrible famine wonder what it was like back then, with smoke and smog and automobiles with big rubber wheels and speeds unreal and factories poisoning the very stream when all the world was wrong. Gasoline house stream.
What are we looking at?
Well, the sign here says dead end, but I don't think it is. I think it's the beginning in a lot of ways. Behind us, a lot of wind generators. I don't feel much in the way of breeze, but look at the way they turn. Really. Generating electricity here out in the middle of Iowa. And I don't know how many there are, how far they go. They seem to go on for some distance. Way, way off, little tiny ones, really the same size as the ones in the foreground. Sustainable and renewable. That's what we need more of.
Charlie, tell me about ethanol. What do you know about that?
Corn derived, and this is corn country. Ethanol it replaces MBTE or whatever that additive is, so it's probably less noxious than anything else. takes, they say, about 1.6 gallons of diesel fuel to make a gallon of ethanol. So energy-wise, it's probably a loser. But there's some political support for it, certainly in the Midwest. It really gets around.
Oh, that's a pretty unique little car.
It's a sports utility vehicle.
Yeah, it's one of the more original sport utility vehicles.
Micro sports utility.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique car.
Take a beetle to the Badlands, take a Ford to Florida, take a Caddy to Caligo, take a Plymouth to Plymouth, take a Chevy through the Delta, take a coupe to Guadalupe, take a Toyota to Dakota, take a hearse to heaven. Take a beetle to the Badlands, take a Ford to Florida, take a Caddy to Caligo, take a Plymouth to Plymouth, take a Chevy through the Delta, take a coupe to Guadalupe, take a Toyota to Dakota, take a hearse to heaven. To my people on the East Coast, in the land I love the most, go ahead, you deserve to boast. Talk about, to my people on the West Coast, many a good host, I offer this toast.
This irrigator, what they're doing is pumping water out of the alluvial material of the river bottom as a well and putting it back on the crops. And this one looked like a linear one that will track straight across the field and then reverse back. And I think it's driven by hydraulic motors, but I'm probably full of beans about the whole thing. Do it quickly, because every time we have to wait for somebody,
Well, this is cool.
Two-seater, and I drove it at 72 miles an hour. It's a neat little machine. We put larger tires on the back to improve the gear ratio. Since they jumped up the horsepower, we figured it was fair to jump up the ratio.
Crazy Horse is the largest sculpture in the world, on a scale higher than the Washington Monument or the tallest Egyptian pyramid. Overall, the Crazy Horse Colossus will be 563 feet high and 641 feet long.
It's a nice little car. We got rigged up so we can tow it behind the motorhome.
Oh, do you? Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. I said, we're driving a motorhome, we're getting 7 miles to the gallon, so.
This is getting 60.
60, isn't that something? That's great.
Korchak felt both the glory and the tragedy of the Native American were reflected in Crazy Horse's short life and death. His sculpture shows Crazy Horse declaring proudly, "My lands are where my dead lie buried."
You know, there's an old saying, when the legends die, the dreams end. And when the dreams end, there is no more greatness.
Coal is a wonderful fuel, but it's very, very high in carbon and carbon dioxide. If we were to change our railroads back to coal-fired locomotives, it would take 5 times the number of diesel locomotives. The coal-fired engine is 1/5 the strength of the diesel engine. These are oil well pumps. The one in the rear, further away, is not running at the present time. A lot of wells have been capped, depending on the price of oil, but eventually all of them are going to be exhausted. Originally, the Spindletop oil field, Spindletop well, was a great gusher and produced 100,000 barrels of oil a day, just blown up into the air. Most oil sources are not that powerful, and now we're more required to pump stuff out than wait for it to spurt into the sky. So it's harder to come by. The oil fields are getting smaller.
My name's John Michael. I'm from Wales in the UK, and I just cannot believe I'm seeing a Robin Reliant in this part of the world.
With the Royal Automobile
with the RAC as well. I can't believe it. How did you get it over here? I mean, you must have shipped it, of course, but...
Well, I'm fascinated by the frame and the engine,
right,
and the ratios. It's a very, very simple, very, very straightforward, just a splendid automobile. The people who work on it here love it because everything makes sense.
It's
there are
so
no
simple.
computers.
There's no computers, that's right.
Geez, its gas mileage is wonderful.
Yeah, so
we've been getting 60, and
60?
This car has 82,000 miles on it.
That's amazing, isn't it? Oh my God.
And,
so you are Mr. Bean.
Yes.
Well, amazing. A friend of mine had one of these, and he frightened me to death. He would go up the motorways at home at a steady 70 miles an hour in this, and you think there's only one wheel at the front, you know? And he used to frighten me to death.
Who taught these idiots to drive?
Who taught these idiots to drive?
Who told them the speed limit was really 95? The last time someone yielded here, it was 1945. Who taught these idiots to drive? One's climbing my rear bumper now, without an inch to spare. His muffler's dragging on the ground, he doesn't seem to care. One hand dials his telephone, one hand combs his hair. He's got one hand on the radio and one hand in the air. He switches lanes at random, although it makes me curse and swerve. He turns every bend in every road into a dead man's curve. He thinks each highway merging lane is just a test of nerve. Someday, if there is a God, he'll get what he deserves. And I know he's in a hurry, and I know he's late for work. Just because he drives a Saab, there's no need to go berserk. I'm going to the registry to find the low-life clerk who gave the driver's license.
Can I fill it up for you, sir?
Yeah. With the irregular.
Does the oil need checking?
No.
How about your tire pressure?
You do tire pressure here?
Sure.
Remember how many times I've said that the world population has tripled since I was born? Well, the forests have been tripling because we've been practicing a very conventional style of forestry for a long time. Now suddenly we've discovered that fire can be beneficial. Here we see a median growth of trees that has been affected by fire. A few survivors, most of them didn't survive, but their progeny is springing up, and I wonder now what the mechanism is for thinning out the new growth, or will it be as thick as the old growth?
We got supercomputer intelligence. We got no more room for the elephants. We're real hot stuff. We're real killer dealers, taking pot shots at the last gorillas. Too many people. Too many people. Bad times are coming and they're coming. many people, not enough baboons.
Doing pretty well. It's a little logy though. It's been run awfully hard. When it was up around 100 degrees on the road and this thing was trying to do 65 miles an hour, I think it did a little bit of damage. It's 82,000 miles now. So it probably needs an engine job. I hope it'll make it to the coast, but I'm not sure.
Thing's all the way down. Try it all the way down.
Now what?
Go ahead, crank it, see what happens.
It's quite something. I've seen them in magazines and I've never seen one before. It's quite something.
And it'll reach a, they say it'll top out 100. I've had it up to 65.
So how many years you had it?
I've had 6 months.
Oh, you just got it.
Yeah. By accident, I ended up with 16 of them.
Oh.
16 out of the 50?
Yep. I got a quarter of all of these in the Western Hemisphere. By mistake.
You must have to take a bad dip.
Oh. The older you get, the less brains you got.
Is that right?
We're experiencing that a little bit.
When I was just a boy, my father sat me on his knee, explained to me how engines work with great simplicity. A piston, it moves up and down inside a metal tube. All it takes is coolant and a little bit of glue. The gasoline explosion gives us power, gives us sound. In turn rotates the drive shaft and that makes the wheels go round. It's really rather simple, it's not voodoo to the wise. But I still think mechanics are witch doctors in disguise.
He's going to look under the hood.
Because I'm auto-mechanically declined. Auto-mechanically declined. With an automatic or stick, either way I'm up a creek. I'm auto-mechanically declined.
Said that 100 miles west of here things weren't quite so frantic and that they might have some shops there to look at it. So Idaho Falls, I think it is. So why don't we try to get there? full of water. It must be a reservoir. What I know about it is there hasn't been much rain lately. You can see the dry tie level along the face of the dam and how much dirt there is between that and the water line. So it hasn't reached its capacity by a long way. It looks like it's losing capacity because the dry tie exists up there from a previous high water.
Yeah, crater.
We burn our own weight in oil every week. This year, at 195 pounds, that amounts for the whole year to 10,000 pounds of oil that I'm responsible for. Some of it in engines, some of it in plastics.
See how quiet it runs.
This is cool. Oh look, and it's got 800 pounds.
You got a motorcycle license?
No.
Oh, okay.
You made it!
I think so. I understand this lake out here's got salt water in it. Is that true?
That's what they say.
Okay.
That means salt water to salt water.
Jim was figuring 3,888 miles a while back. I don't know whether he's still got that or not, but maybe a little bit more. So almost 4,000 miles. And poor little Robin is held together. It's still got a fragile universal joint, but I think that's about the only thing wrong with it. Did very, very well. It's a good car. Proud of it. Nice car. Nice car.
Jim, do you think it was going to make it?
Absolutely. Of course, it kept us guessing right to the last second, but it worked out well. Worked out well. It just wanted to get here as badly as we did.
Well, you have to be a clown to drive 3,888 miles just to see different salt water with a different name on it. We started Atlantic, we're now at Pacific. And we're all clowns.
Cheers to everyone.
Cheers. I've learned one thing for sure on this trip. Even though I got over 60 miles a gallon, I won't be doing it again in this lifetime. Because abstinence is one way we can at least lengthen out the time we have available to try to find something else. Abstinence makes the gas last longer.